Uncover the 7 surprising secrets successful people use to ignite transformative self-confidence. Emily perched on her chair at the reception desk, fingers dancing nervously over the keyboard, as she juggled phone calls and patient schedules for the medical office in the quaint town of Maplewood. The sound of ringing phones and distant chatter was nothing compared to the hollowness that echoed inside her. Just outside, life thrived with purpose and aspirations. Inside, she felt like a mere shadow, trapped within the monotony of everyday tasks. She had given everything to her children, especially Ben, her troubled teenage son, yet felt like she was disappearing, her own dreams cast aside. Suffocated by a relentless routine, tension filled the air as she glanced at the clock. What was meant to be a structured day had become an endless struggle. Ben's face flashed in her mind, that familiar anxiety etched around his eyes. She wrestled with her own insecurities while pushing him to aspire for more, torn between the need to nurture and the haunting fear that he would spiral further into turmoil. As a single mother, each decision weighed heavy on her. Was she hindering his progress by focusing on the sacrifices she made? Her heart wrestled with the notion that being a quiet hero was a misconception. As she left work one gloomy afternoon, the clouds hanging low seemed to echo her own dark thoughts. Arriving home, she discovered an old box belonging to her late father. Curiosity pulled her in, and she allowed herself to delve into the remnants of a life lived without fanfare. Flipping through a faded journal, Emily uncovered her father's dreams, words etched with hope and struggle as a young mechanic brimming with promises yet unfulfilled. Each page felt like a revelation, a flicker of inspiration dawning amidst the shadows in her heart. Maybe there were secrets within his experiences that resonated with her own search for self-worth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Excitement tinged with trepidation filled her as she began to decipher the 7 transformative secrets her father had lived by. She envisioned sharing these insights with Ben, fostering a path toward self-acceptance they both desperately needed. Yet, as the bond strengthened, whispers from the town's scoffs of disapproval and judgment catered to her fears that they were foolishly pursuing a road not meant for them. The pressure vested in their community weighed down on her, each comment a reminder of the scrutiny they faced and their cozy kitchen. Caught between laughter and silences, Emily taught Ben to celebrate small victories amidst the turbulent waters of teenage angst. Yet, beneath the surface, despair crept closer. Ben wrestled with feelings of inadequacy, while Emily struggled under the constant shroud of financial strain. Just when she thought their connection was deepening, an incident at school sent Ben spiraling, igniting her own fears of inadequacy in parenting, a reminder that redemption was fraught with peril. Caught in a tumult of emotions, Emily's resolve wavered, her heart racing as she envisioned confronting the biases, realizing that her quiet demeanor would not suffice to change perceptions. In the dim glow of the evening light, she knew she had to summon every ounce of courage to disrupt the narrative. She stood at the brink, knowing the vital moment was approaching to deliver her message, the weight of her father's lessons heavy on her shoulders. Would she rise to the challenge? But as shadows of doubt lurked closer, the thought seeped in, would they dismiss her story, leaving her as invisible as before? Only time would tell whether she could inspire not just Ben, but an entire community to recognize their worth. The path ahead twisted with uncertainty, yet each choice could ignite unmeasurable change. Emily spent the next few days diving deeper into her father's journal, extracting insights that resonated with her struggles. Each secret he had penned felt like a lifeline, an affirmation that growth was indeed possible, even amid chaos. As she wrapped her mind around these concepts, she began scripting her thoughts, a decision no less important than the passage of time. One concept struck her with particular force: the importance of embracing failure as a stepping stone to success. Her father had described his own missteps, detailing moments of despair, revealing a profound resilience that emerged from confronting challenges head-on. She began to reflect on her own parenting. Perhaps she was too protective of Ben, too focused on shielding him from disappointment instead of encouraging him to embrace it. That evening, after dinner, she sat down with Ben. The warmth of their surroundings contrasted sharply with the storm of uncertainty brewing within her. She felt vulnerable, like a child herself, as she shared the lessons she had encountered in her father's writings. "Ben, it's okay to fail. It's what helps us grow. We shouldn't fear it, we should learn from it. Just like my dad did," she said, searching for connection in his eyes. Ben leaned back, his expression a reflection of both skepticism and curiosity. "You really think it's that simple?" he questioned. The fear of failure loomed heavily for him, a weight that made the prospect of change feel daunting. Yet, in Emily's heart, a seed of determination began to sprout. She would help him navigate this fear. The next day, buoyed by this fresh resolve, Emily approached her boss at the medical office, a woman known for her stern demeanor and high expectations. Emily had always kept her head down, fulfilling her tasks without fanfare. But today felt different. Her newly discovered insights bolstered her steely determination. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling just beneath the surface. She articulated her desire to take on more responsibilities, wanting to evolve from the role that had long defined her life. Her boss raised an eyebrow, surprised by Emily's abrupt confidence, but intrigued by the spark she presented. "Are you ready for that, Emily?" "It's not an easy path," her boss replied, skepticism dripping from her words. "I'm ready to face any challenges that come with it," Emily declared, surprised by the strength in her own voice. Confrontation was an unfamiliar territory for her, yet with each word, her fear slowly transformed into empowerment. The days that followed were a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. Emily began pushing herself, seeking additional tasks and initiating projects that had once seemed unattainable. Each minor victory built her confidence, propelling her to try again, even when faced with setbacks. The mornings felt brighter, the world more vibrant. Meanwhile, Ben too began to open up, inspired by his mother's boldness. He approached a few classmates he'd once avoided. The fear of judgment had held him captive for far too long, but now fueled by a newfound belief that failure was an opportunity for growth. He took baby steps toward acceptance and courage. As weeks turned into months, the challenges remained. Emily faced obstacles at work, while Ben grappled with peer pressures and self-doubt. Yet, they both shared a pivotal realization. Facing their fears together formed an unbreakable bond. They were not merely surviving. They were thriving on the precipice of reflecting the resilience and power they had inherited. One afternoon, while Emily sat at her desk immersed in her newfound responsibilities, a thought struck her. What if her father's journal had more secrets to unveil? What if there were uncharted territories in her own life that awaited exploration? The urge to delve deeper into her father's legacy resonated deeply. She had only skimmed the surface of what he had intended to teach, and behind every layer revealed yet another challenge waiting to be tackled. What if within those pages lay directions for a path she would expect a calling that resonated throughout their quiet little town? Driven by this sudden curiosity, she opened the journal to a blank page. Perhaps it was time for her to write her own story. What exhilarating truths lay ahead for Emily, and would they push her beyond her own limits? The moment had come. She was ready to confront the next chapter of her journey. As Emily penned a few tentative words on the blank page, she hesitated, grappling with a mix of excitement and fear. The journal whispered promises of discovery, urging her to dive deeper, to confront not only the lessons of her father's life, but also her own inhibitions. What had appeared as a simple writing exercise now loomed like a doorway into realms she had yet to explore. Each time she opened the journal, memories of her childhood splashed vividly in her mind, the late nights they'd spent together discussing everything from trivial school events to fundamental life choices. With this abstract nostalgia came clarity. The journey ahead was hers. It would not merely be about implementing her father's teachings, but about weaving her own philosophy into them. The notion ignited a passion within her. Meanwhile, Within the walls of the medical office, Emily's aspirations began to crystallize. The more she took on difficult tasks, the more she transformed her fear into a systematic strategy to cultivate personal and professional growth. One pivotal challenge arose when her boss assigned her to coordinate a community health initiative, a project deemed ambitious even within the office hierarchy. She felt a familiar tug of anxiety, yet this time, it came wrapped in curiosity and excitement rather than crippling dread. After accepting the challenge, Emily sat down to strategize, her mind racing with ideas on how to tackle the project. She drafted proposals, researched community needs, and began reaching out to local businesses for sponsorship. Each success, each small win, spun a web of confidence around her, transforming uncertainty into a palpable sense of purpose. She wasn't simply implementing a program, she was embedding herself within the framework of her community, offering support and healing, at home. However, Emily's attempts to connect with Ben remained fraught. On certain days, she became the wellspring of encouragement, while on others, her energy felt drained by his setbacks. One evening, as they sat in the living room together, Emily decided to engage him anew. "What if we fail at something together?" she asked, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "What if we just accepted the possibility and shared what we learned instead?" Ben frowned, uncertainty etching his features. "You mean like a mother-son project? You really want to do that?" "Yes. Let us do something that excites you," she proposed. "Anything. Could be a science experiment, a school project, or even something creative. Together, we should embrace whatever fear we have." With cautious optimism, he finally agreed, and they settled on creating a podcast about their learning experiences. The idea filled Emily with excitement. It presented limitless possibilities for them to explore together. They began mapping out episodes, discussing their own struggles, and even inviting guests to share stories of failure and resilience. The endeavor kindled a deeper connection, as their conversations gave birth to laughter and heartfelt exchanges. As weeks turned into months, their initiative became more than a simple project. It evolved into a transformative journey for both of them. Ben's ideas flowed more freely as he opened up about his fears, while Emily found empowerment in her vulnerability, seeing her son navigate his own spirals with newfound courage. Emily still felt the need to uncover more from her father's journal. One evening, she found herself immersed in a section that referenced 7 surprising secrets he had written about self-confidence and success, a concept that captivated her more than ever. Each secret unraveled like a thread in a tapestry, revealing intricate patterns that related to her life and renewed purpose. With a racing heart and eager anticipation, she began drafting a plan to explore each secret, wanting to incorporate them into her burgeoning identity. What had once been mere reflections in her father's writings were now illuminating her path ahead. Yet, a question loomed heavily on her mind. Did she have what it truly took to embody these secrets? Determined to unlock these answers, she felt a deep yearning for discoveries that awaited her. Each chapter of the journal revealed more than lessons. They held challenges to conquer and depths within her she had yet to embrace fully. What would she uncover about herself once she stepped fully into her father's teachings? The closer she got to those revelations, the more daunting the path appeared. The next phase of her journey was upon her. Would she dare to dive deeper and embrace whatever awaited? As Emily's fingers brushed against the papers of her father's journal, she felt the weight of the secrets contained within. They thrummed with potential, teasing her with glimpses of a transformed self yet to emerge. She recalled a particularly poignant lesson from childhood that her father had reinforced. Growth, like a seed breaking through soil, often required a measure of discomfort. This thought ignited a fire inside her. Perhaps diving deeper into these surprising secrets could be the catalyst she needed for her evolution. Determined, Emily devised a strategy. She would dedicate her mornings to dissecting each secret, applying their teachings directly into her life and work. She scheduled a series of personal development sessions in the quiet of dawn, when the world outside remained hushed, allowing her thoughts to resonate without distraction. On her first morning of commitment, she combed through the first secret, embraced the power of failure. The irony was not lost on her. Failing had once terrified her, nearly paralyzing her decision-making. Yet now, this revelation hung before her like a promise. What did it mean to truly embrace failure? Could she face the ghosts of her past missteps instead of shunning them? Fueled by this insight, Emily approached her community health project with renewed rigor. The next task at hand was organizing a focus group to assess the efficacy of their services. Although the idea filled her with trepidation, what if they uncovered overwhelming shortcomings? She reminded herself of her commitment to reframe her relationship with failure. She gathered her courage, arranged the logistics, and announced the focus group to her team. To her surprise, the meeting was not just informative but invigorating. The group's feedback revealed not only the systemic flaws but also bright spots that celebrated their successes. Emily absorbed each comment, nodding in agreement. With every critique, she felt her confidence swell. Mistakes were not a reflection of her worth but stepping stones toward improvement. This transformative perspective didn't just strengthen her resolve. It wove her more tightly into the fabric of the community, building bridges of trust and collaboration. At home, the podcast episodes continued to thrive. Emily and Ben explored themes of failure and resilience, sharing stories that embraced vulnerability. They invited a local author who had faced her own hurdles, spurring conversation on how to redeem failure into fortitude. Watching Ben engage with such enthusiasm, Emily sensed a change in him too. He was no longer burdened by the weight of perfectionism but was curious about exploration, open to possibilities and motivated by the understanding that mistakes were part of the journey. One evening, however, as they prepared to record their next episode, Emily glanced into Ben's eyes and felt a flicker of apprehension. Are we really diving deep enough? She wondered aloud. Her former fears resurfaced, her doubts swirling like an unyielding storm cloud. What if sharing their experiences exposed their vulnerabilities too starkly? Would they look weak in the eyes of their peers? Determined to confront these insecurities, Emily remembered the second secret from her father's journal. Authenticity is key. It resonated with her, pushing her to shift her perspective once again. Authenticity demanded raw honesty, not just from others but from herself. Perhaps it wasn't about diving deeper into vulnerability but about allowing her true self to emerge, flaws and all. The realization elevated her spirit. Maybe what she feared was not exposing her weaknesses but risking the liberation found in the truth. With a newfound clarity, Emily turned to Ben, excitement etching itself into her features. Let us be real, she urged him. Let us show who we truly are. As they recorded, their conversation shifted. It grew richer with depth and honesty, far beyond mere anecdotes. They explored not just the triumphs but also the raw struggles behind the scenes. It was cathartic, the kind of exchange both empowering and humbling. Their willingness to embrace authenticity ignited a flicker of possibility, for Emily a promise of connection, deeper understanding, and shared growth between mother and son. Yet, somewhere in the depths of her heart, a deeper conflict brewed. If she continued to expose her vulnerabilities, what would the repercussions be, not just for her but for Ben as well? With excitement and apprehension intertwining, Emily closed the journal and took a deep breath. What awaited them as they ventured further down this path of honesty and discovery? The secrets her father held were unraveling, yet the journey promised challenges that would put their resolve to the test. The stakes were rising, and the question loomed heavy in the air. How far was she willing to push herself and Ben into the light of vulnerability? The following morning brought a sense of both purpose and anxiety. Emily awoke with the scent of coffee weaving through the air, the sun inching its way across the horizon. She recalled how she had urged Ben to embrace authenticity, but now found herself grappling with the implications of such openness. Would the world accept their true selves, or would they become the targets of scrutiny? Determined to press on, she opened her father's journal, her eyes landing on the third secret: cultivate your inner strengths. The phrase resonated, igniting her curiosity. What were her inner strengths, and how could she amplify them in her work and her life? As she contemplated deeply, a realization settled over her. Her enthusiasm for community health was intertwined with her gift for empathy. Taking a moment to reflect, She considered how she had often shied away from fully showcasing this strength. There had been times when she feigned certainty, masking her ability to listen and connect with others. This is what she needed to awaken her capacity to nurture relationships through deep understanding. With purpose renewed, she strategized her next steps. She would lead her team through a session focused not just on problems but on leveraging their unique strengths. Mid-morning found Emily gathered with her team in a small meeting room. Banners of past community health fairs adorned the walls, nostalgic reminders of successes. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as she introduced the concept of identifying strengths. Today, she began, her voice steady yet vulnerable. I want us to focus on our unique abilities and how they can propel our work forward. As they brainstormed, Emily saw her colleagues burst into life. Their talents and passions illuminated the room. Some had a knack for organization and logistics, while others excelled in outreach and advocacy. Each contribution helped shape a vibrant tapestry of skills. The synergy of those personalities ignited a newfound collective motivation, making Emily's heart swell with pride. Yet amid this collaborative creativity, her mind turned over the darker questions. What if their efforts bore fruit but not the kind she envisioned? In her desire to cultivate an empowering environment, was she courting complacency or neglecting necessary critiques? The anxiety bubbled beneath her optimism, a deep-seated need for assurance wrestling for prominence against her aspirations. That evening, as she walked Ben through their latest podcast episode's editing process, the tension lingered like a thick fog. He could sense it, occasionally glancing at her, eager eyes questioning the silence between them. You seem quiet, Mom. What's on your mind? He probed gently. She took a breath, prompting an internal clash between honesty and self-preservation. Sharing her struggles meant risking their fledgling progress. Was she prepared for that? I'm just reflecting on the session today, she finally admitted. Part of me worries we're not being critical enough. What if we miss the real issues by focusing just on strengths? Ben considered her words, his brow furrowing. But isn't recognizing strengths important too? It's just as much about understanding our weaknesses while appreciating what we do well, right? His perspective softened the sharp edges of her doubts. That's true, she sighed, feeling the duality of her responsibility weighing heavy. The need for balance between optimism and realism hung in the air, unanswered. How would they move forward without veering into blind positivity? What would it mean to balance genuine encouragement and constructive critique? As they wrapped up for the night, Emily realized she faced yet another revelation. Growth needed the harmony of both worlds, the light of strength and the shadow of honest reflection. Could she find a way to navigate this complex terrain? The door creaked open just then, revealing an unexpected visitor. Her former mentor, Claire, who had always believed in confronting harsh realities. Emily's heart raced with uncertainty. Would this surprise lead to the guidance she sought or challenge her newfound philosophy of authenticity once more? With her stomach churning and anticipation prickling at her skin, Emily braced herself for a reunion that could alter her path forever. The moment of truth had arrived unbidden, and the stakes felt impossibly high. Would she crumble under pressure, or could she harness this encounter to deepen her understanding of vulnerability? Emily's breath caught in her throat as Claire stepped into the dim light of the room, her familiar presence both a comfort and a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. Claire's sharp gaze scanned the room, taking in the disorder of papers and coffee cups. It was a scene that encapsulated Emily's internal chaos. Emily, Claire said, her tone a blend of firmness and warmth. It's been a while. I've heard whispers about your work. I came to see for myself. The walls felt as if they were closing in. Emily's mind raced with her mentor's implicit expectations. Claire was known for her dedication to raw feedback, a truth Emily both admired and dreaded. This was not merely a reunion. This was a crucible moment where she would decide how open she could be. Why don't we catch up? Emily suggested, her voice steadier than she felt. She gestured toward the cluttered chairs, which seemed to radiate the unsteadiness bubbling within her. Claire took a seat, and Emily followed suit, her heart thudding as silence filled the space. So, tell me what's been going on, Claire prompted, her sharp eyes narrowing with interest. As if a dam had broken, Emily found herself sharing everything: the enthusiasm of her team session, the synergy they created, but also the underlying doubt, the worry that focusing on strengths might cloud their view of real challenges. Claire listened, her expression unreadable, as worry seeped out of Emily's words. It's admirable to foster strengths, Claire said after a long pause. But without addressing weaknesses, you're inviting disappointment. Growth needs both. Emily felt a rush of clarity mixed with frustration. She had known this on some level and had wrestled with the balance herself. But how could she inspire her team to face uncomfortable truths? Do you remember the time we had to confront that failing project? Claire continued, leaning slightly forward. That was one of the hardest lessons, wasn't it? It taught us that every setback also had a hidden strength if we were willing to confront it. The memory pulled Emily into a deep reflection. She had learned not only to embrace failure but also to dissect it. What had gone wrong? Why had they miscalculated? And even what unexpected strengths had emerged from that chaotic time? Yet, here she was, poised on the precipice of a new venture, uncertain how to translate that knowledge into her current project. Are you seeking the approval of others? Or are you genuinely testing your limits? Claire's penetrating inquiry struck home. Emily's lips parted as she searched for a response but found herself grappling with discomfort. I'm trying to create an open environment, she stumbled, her voice faltering. But I guess I'm scared of creating more conflict. The world isn't built on conflict avoidance, Emily. If you want to spur transformation, you need to cultivate both the comfort of strength and the challenge of truth. Your team won't grow unless you provoke some discomfort in the right way, Claire advised, her voice steady yet pushing. In that moment, clarity washed over Emily as she considered the path laid before her. It was about cultivating an environment where honesty reigned, where vulnerability became a courageous tool rather than a weakness. It felt daunting yet exhilarating, the thought of wrestling with discomfort enlightening her perspective. So how do I invite that honesty without breaking morale? Emily asked, a new resolve stirring within her. You have to model it first, Claire replied, her face softening. Show your team that confronting reality honestly creates strength. Vulnerability is a strength. Emily absorbed the weight of that phrase, her heart thrumming with the possibility of change. It was time to weave this lesson into her leadership style. She decided she would be the first to lay her uncertainties bare, not to burden them with her fears, but to empower a collective journey toward growth. As the conversation wound down, and Claire prepared to leave, Emily felt a newfound determination. She was ready to embrace authenticity in its fullest form, ready to confront the discomfort tethered to honesty. But lingering doubts tugged at her thoughts. What if the confrontation led to rifts rather than growth? Would her team embrace this structure of vulnerability, or would they resist? With these questions in her heart, Emily felt the anticipation swell within. She knew meeting those challenges would steer her into uncharted territory. Only time would tell if she could balance the precarious interplay of empathy and honesty in her leadership journey. As Claire turned to exit, the door creaked ominously. Remember, she said, glancing back with a sly smile, sometimes the most profound insights come when we least expect them. Emily sat in the aftermath of the conversation, a simmering excitement buzzing in her core. She was on the brink of unleashing something powerful. What revelations awaited her in implementing this new approach? Would she regret the courage she wielded? Her next steps seemed not only necessary but inevitable, yet a question loomed larger than all. Could she trust her instincts enough to lead? Emily stared at the door for a lingering moment after Claire's departure, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The challenge that lay ahead began to crystallize. She had to transform her approach. But how? The idea of vulnerability as strength echoed in the empty room, igniting both fear and hope within her. It felt like a dare, a challenge from Claire to step beyond her usual comfort zone. As the hours melted away, Emily plunged into her work with renewed urgency. The weight of expectation hung heavy, but the drive to innovate her leadership style pushed her into uncharted territories. Drafting her strategies wasn't merely an exercise in creativity, it was an exploration of self. She craved a way to integrate authenticity and discomfort into her daily interactions, but clarity eluded her. She jotted down notes for an upcoming team meeting, specifying topics they would tackle. How could she initiate that honest discourse without alienating anyone? Her gaze fell on a whiteboard filled with past brainstorming sessions, ideas that once inspired but now felt distant. One of them caught her eye. Constructive conflict leads to growth. It was a concept she had skirted around for too long, mirroring her hesitation to confront her own fears. An idea sparked: if she embraced this mantra, perhaps they all could adopt that mindset. She envisioned the meeting space, the layout, the energy she wished to cultivate. Would standing up front alongside her team make them more receptive? Scripting her opening lines felt essential, but she caught herself. Too scripted would feel like a facade. Authenticity must seep out of her intentions and guide her speech. Taking a deep breath, she drafted the session plan. If she wanted honesty, she had to set the tone. As the meeting day approached, a hazy sense of dread settled within her. What if vulnerability backfired? Every leadership journey has its risks, yet the stakes felt higher. Each night, her mind replayed the fear's imaginary conversations, imagined rejection. What she had once critiqued in others was now reverberating in her own heart. Why was she so afraid of constructive criticism? Adamantly, she prepared more team-building exercises, intentional time for sharing. When the day arrived, Emily greeted her team with an uncharacteristic brightness, an energy that vibrated in the air. She watched their faces, each member a unique facet of the larger mosaic she hoped to inspire. The initial moments felt clumsy, as uncertainty dulled the atmosphere. She navigated through the agenda with care, guiding them to the point where she would open the floor for honesty. Today, she began, "I'm going to share something I've struggled with: my fear of conflict. It feels disarming, but perhaps if we all take a step into vulnerability, we can cling to the strengths hidden within our weaknesses." The room shifted. Eyes widened in surprise. The honesty in her tone prompted a ripple of intrigue. A hush settled in as she continued. "I want to encourage our team to call out challenges they face, not to chastise each other, but to build the connections that promote growth. It's an opportunity for us to understand one another." As she finished, the silence deepened as if time itself held its breath. Then, as if the dam had weakened, a voice broke through. "I've struggled with prioritizing tasks," a team member confessed. "It sometimes feels like I am just treading water." Emily's heart raced with mingled fear and hope. Would this honesty spark a transformative exchange or unravel the delicate fabric of their interactions? As sharing continued, truths flowed like rivers, revealing vulnerabilities and encouraging collective strength. Ideas flickered into existence, leading to solutions and insights that had previously remained unspoken. But as waves of honesty washed over them, a tension began to simmer, undermining the environment she had fought to create. One team member challenged another's priorities harshly. The atmosphere shifted from comfort to strain as discomfort skittered across the room. Emily felt her stomach knot, doubt creeping in. Was the discomfort too much? Did she make a mistake? "Let us pause for a moment," she said, attempting to regain control. "I believe that honesty breeds growth, but it also needs to be compassionate." She sat back, feeling her limitations bubble to the surface. Could she navigate this burgeoning conflict? The discussions flowed again, but now, she faced the true test of her leadership. Would she be the calm in their storm or succumb to the pressures surrounding her? The answers felt like they hovered just out of reach, tantalizing yet elusive. As she watched her team grapple with the unexpected dynamics, the fear of failure transformed into a fierce resolve within her. Emily realized that facing these challenges required not only vulnerability but resilience. She would have to embody the very growth she sought to inspire. The meeting ended, and while some issues remained unresolved, a new rhythm emerged, an uncertain but promising step toward authenticity as a collective. Heart pounding, she left the meeting room feeling both exhilarated and terrified. Was this the beginning of a new leadership journey, or the start of a profound unraveling? As the door swung closed behind her, she wondered how deep would her commitment to vulnerability be tested? Emily paced back to her office, her mind racing with the aftershocks of the meeting. The lingering tension from that moment left her anxious, but beneath the fear, a flicker of determination ignited. She recognized a pivotal truth. Transformation was not just about embracing vulnerability, it was about embodying it despite the discomfort. She sat at her desk and stared at her computer screen, the cursor flickering like her racing thoughts. The urgent questions resurfaced. How could she maintain the balance between honesty and sensitivity? How would they progress from raw vulnerability to constructive solutions? Emily resolved to confront these uncertainties head-on. In the days that followed, she arranged one-on-ones with team members whose voices had shown during the meeting. Engaging with them individually allowed her to dig deeper, beyond the surface of shared confessions. Each conversation revealed individual struggles, and for the first time, she witnessed their human complexity. One developer spoke of a crippling fear of technology failures, which he shielded behind a facade of confidence. Another expressed hair-raising anxiety over presenting ideas, a fear that had stifled her creativity. Listening felt disarming, empowering. Emily discovered that failure was not just a possibility. It was a shared experience. It hit her that these were not just isolated challenges but collective experiences they all bore silently. Each anecdote punctuated the fact that fear of conflict was universal, something that everyone carried like hidden scars. Each discussion pushed her boundaries, forcing her to confront her own resistance to conflict, her fear of disapproval and rejection, of exposing her weaknesses in front of others. Through this lens, she realized life's true gift. Growth often lay just outside the comfort zone that she had clung to for so long. Yet, the deeper she delved, the more convoluted the path became. Despite her intentions, a prevalent fear among her colleagues hung like a storm cloud. Talking about conflict opened wounds. It forced them all to look inwardly, exposing insecurities neither wanted to acknowledge. During the meetings that followed, team members engaged less openly, reverting to their default, more superficial exchanges. This regression stunned Emily. It felt like betrayal. The very honesty she sought to cultivate was receding. She questioned herself. Was she playing the architect of their evolution only to see her design structure crumble? This spiraling doubt threatened to rob her of the hard-earned energy she had mustered. Sitting through a meeting that seemed to revert back to hollow niceties, Emily felt frustration surging. Was it time to reevaluate her approach? Perhaps the answer rested in her own narrative, a powerful tool often overlooked. She needed to share her own failures and lessons more authentically, illuminating the road she had walked. Would revealing her struggles resonate more than her aspirations? Determined, she crafted a candid presentation of her past mistakes, complete with lessons learned. She recalled when she lost sight of her vision due to fear, making decisions that stifled her growth. She knew she needed to show them that vulnerability was a strength honed by confronting challenges, not avoiding them. As she practiced her presentation, she felt the tension coiling within her again. Would her revelation provoke discomfort or spark a breakthrough? She wouldn't know until she shared her truth, and she celebrated this unknown as a tantalizing dilemma she hadn't initially anticipated. The moment approached. Standing before her team, she felt the weight of anticipation thrum in her chest. Before we dive into today's agenda, I want to share a personal experience, she began, grounding herself in authenticity. The room tensed, but Emily pressed on. This journey we're on isn't linear. There are dips, and I've faced significant missteps. As her words poured out, she could feel the atmosphere shift. Would they see her not just as a leader, but as a fellow traveler navigating the rough seas of personal growth? Yet, a whisper of doubt lingered. Had she reached the precipice of vulnerability, only to falter at the moment of truth? Would the authenticity she sought to embody resonate, or would it push her team further into retreat? With adrenaline coursing through her, she awaited their reactions, conscious that this moment might just define her trajectory. Would she witness their awakening or her own unraveling? Emily's heart raced as she spoke, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of engagement. She couldn't shake the misgivings tightening her chest. Had she miscalculated? Was her attempt at transparency simply an invitation to more silence? The initial inclinations of comfort and familiarity persisted as she recounted her missteps. Moments of fear, hesitation, and the shadows of doubt that clawed at her resolve. As her narrative unfolded, she observed her colleagues, faces marked by intrigue and uncertainty, minds grappling with the raw honesty laid bare before them. One of the developers, a quiet man named Alex, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The authenticity of her experiences seemed to strike a chord, drawing some attendees in while others remained painfully reticent. The meeting room echoed with a mix of silence and murmured reflections after she concluded. Emily sensed she had invited them into a conversation, but was it one they were ready to have? The tension was palpable as she caught fragments of whispers. "I never knew she struggled like that," whispered Sarah, a typically vocal member of the team who now sat with her eyes downcast. Emily felt a flicker of hope mingled with her anxiety. Was there a bridge forming between them? "Thanks for sharing that, Emily." The team's lead architect finally spoke, breaking the silence. His voice, usually commanding and confident, was softer now. "It's easy to forget that everyone has their battles." Emily let the words sink in but felt the energy in the room shift as quickly as it had arrived. She was teetering on a fine edge between encouraging openness and exposing the raw nerves still tender beneath the surface. How could she transform this moment into something productive? "Let us take a moment to unpack what this means for us," she proposed cautiously. "What can we learn from these experiences?" Her question hung in the air, challenging the team to confront their own vulnerabilities. Alex glanced at Sarah, who slowly nodded. "I guess it does feel lonely at times, thinking I should just have it all together," he confessed, his voice trembling. An invisible weight began to lift as the conversation started to crack the armor around their fears. Others began contributing, sharing their sentiments of inadequacy. Emily felt a surge of encouragement. Perhaps this was the breakthrough she yearned for, a chance to stitch their fragmented experiences into a collective understanding. Yet, even as she embraced the warmth of connection, an unsettling thought gnawed at her. Was this really the breakthrough they all needed, or merely a momentary escape from their deeper issues? The truth that had begun to take root in their dialogue felt precarious, as if it could shatter with a misstep. As the hour wore on, Emily's tone shifted. She aimed to blend inspiration with clear guidelines for action. "Vulnerability is our starting point, but it's not the end," she emphasized. "Now, how do we channel this honesty into actionable change?" The energy in the room flickered between hope and hesitation. Ideas bubbled forth, but Emily couldn't ignore that a dark undercurrent of fear seeped into their contributions. As teams shared their thoughts, her mind raced with how to sift through this complexity. She realized she was forging ahead, not just for them, but for herself as well. This journey of vulnerability wasn't solely about transforming her team. It was becoming a path toward her own self-definition as a leader. But just as the momentum began to gain traction, a familiar face entered the conference room unannounced, her supervisor, Mark, whose rigid demeanor was anything but conducive to the atmosphere they had worked to cultivate. Emily's stomach dropped. Would he throw a wrench into the fragile dynamics they had just begun to establish? What would he say? The tension doubled as his eyes scanned the room, a slight frown forming on his face. "What's going on here?" he demanded, and Emily felt the fragile threads of connection reverberate and stretch, perhaps at the brink of snapping. Would Mark's presence be the catalyst to push her team into retreat once more? Or was it an opportunity to face another layer of confrontation, the logs on their fire yet to be burned? At that moment, Emily understood. She not only had to defend her narrative, but also her emerging vision for the team amid this unexpected obstacle. Would she be able to navigate this new complexity without losing her emerging sense of purpose? Her pulse quickened. The time had come to confront not just her fear of vulnerability, but an authority that had always loomed overhead, ready to dictate the terms of their growth. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Emily faced Mark, internalizing the stakes of the moment. This was not just about her but about the team she'd fostered, the bonds they had so courageously begun to weave. Mark's skepticism loomed overhead like a thundercloud, threatening to rain on the newfound openness they had strived to create. "Just a simple team meeting, Mark," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're discussing our vulnerabilities and how they shape our strengths." The words hung in the air, daring him to challenge her. Mark crossed his arms, his presence radiating caution. "Is that so? I hope you're checking productivity while you're at it." "Vulnerability doesn't drive results," he replied, skepticism laden in his tone. In that moment, Emily felt the nagging doubts creeping back. Yet she was determined not to back down. This was her transformation taking root, and she was ready to advocate for the power of authenticity. "Actually, I believe addressing insecurities can ignite innovation and productivity. When employees feel valued and understood, they contribute their best work," she challenged, each word punctuated by newfound resolve. As Mark considered her response, she felt an unexpected surge of confidence. This wasn't merely a defense of her leadership method. It was her affirmation of what she wanted to exemplify: vulnerability as a cornerstone of growth. The team watched, their faces a mix of interest and apprehension, waiting to see how Mark would react. "I'll give you this one chance, Emily. But if productivity starts to suffer, you'll answer for it," Mark warned, a flicker of interest breaking through his veneer of disapproval. A wave of relief washed over her as he turned to leave, knowing she had navigated the challenge without compromising her vision. The atmosphere lightened, almost electric, as the team reacted to the encounter. "That was bold," a colleague murmured, admiration in her eyes. Emily felt the foundation she was building become more resilient. This wasn't just a fleeting moment of courage. Confronting Mark had solidified her belief in the transformative power of their journey. She was steadily climbing from uncertainty to empowerment. Now, she began, recentering the discussion. "Let us channel this emotional honesty into actionable steps. We've made great strides today, but we must continue to push ourselves." As she spoke, she saw their faces transform, fear melting away into determination. Emily encouraged them to articulate how vulnerability could shape their team dynamics and lead to innovative solutions. Ideas flooded the room, each contribution fueled by the catharsis of shared experiences. A team member suggested regular growth sessions, where they'd offer constructive feedback alongside recognition of strengths. Another proposed collaborative projects to maximize individual talents, allowing each member to step into their own power without fear of judgment. This energy created a palpable momentum, confidence cascading like a wave as Emily guided them through a brainstorming session filled with excitement and potential. Their collective resolve shimmered in the air, transforming uncertainty into clarity. In that shared space, Emily witnessed the true essence of leadership, the ability to create a culture of trust, candor, and empowerment. Days turned into weeks, and Emily continued nurturing her team's authenticity, celebrating failures as lessons and victories as shared accomplishments. Their growth sessions became a sanctuary for self-exploration and collaboration, unearthing hidden potential among her team members. The environment flourished, balancing vulnerability and progress, a duality they had all learned to embrace. Ben, too, began to find his voice, inspired by his mother's journey. Their podcast flourished, focusing on resilience through failure. With each episode, they explored various narratives of triumph over adversity, weaving in their own experiences. This parental bond strengthened their connection, transforming into a profound source of hope for the both of them. One day, Ben approached Emily, in a quiet moment that felt monumental. "I shared our podcast with my class, and they were excited. They even want to contribute their own stories," he confessed, a spark of pride evident in his demeanor. "That's incredible, Ben," she replied, her heart swelling with joy. "You're inspiring others just like I hoped we would." In that moment, Emily recognized the depth of her transformation. Her fears had ignited passion, and her vulnerability had led to authenticity, not just for herself but for her son and her team. With her father's guidance echoing in her heart, she stepped confidently into her next chapter, weaving her story of resilience and empowerment into the fabric of her community. And as she embraced this reality, she felt whole, a worthy reflection of the journey she had carved, filled with lessons learned, visible growth, and unshakable strength. In the end, she didn't just find her voice. She built a legacy of courage that would inspire everyone around her, proving that true strength blossomed from authenticity. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will empower you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you content that inspires and uplifts. Comment below with your reactions and theories about how Emily's journey resonates with you. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Let us spread this message of transformation far and wide.